Okay, call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahshai Bashim Makakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostle, great millstone over well. I am not a member, however, I've entered into their labors. Peace and blessings to the sincere brothers and sisters, students, wherever you are, whatever your lot may be. This is a second attempt to try to record this video, and I was cooking. I'm telling you, boy, I was cooking that first time, and it's disappeared. So I'm gonna try to recreate that. I have two videos, and I have a couple definitions I want to get you before we even start. So we're gonna lay a foundation. Okay, we understand that Genesis 27 and 40 is talking about Esau, who was Cain, who was the serpent. So who was the serpent? Who was Cain, who came back as Esau, and he was red all over like an hairy garment. Okay, if you want that breakdown, I can put that in the description box for you at the at the end of the video, or you can search it yourself. GMS 27. I'm sorry, Genesis 27 breakdown, or who is Esau Edom break. That has been covered over and over and over, so I know that you can find it. And his blessing from his father Isaac was he should live by his sword, right? So whenever you hear the sword, and you'll go to, what is it? And the wicked, or like a red dragon, or the red horse. Okay, so we'll read it straight to the point, and I'm going to try to move fast just in case the video cuts off again for whatever reason it cut off before. Malachi 1 and 4, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall be called, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation with forever. Okay, so when you see the wicked, or when you go to, let's go to Psalm. Right, straight to the point, 17 and 13. Arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Right, so not only when he is the sword, he is the whooping stick of the Most High, but he also lives by the sword. Right, and when you go into that name, Cain, that also goes into like weaponry. Is the first murderer on the earth. So there are different things you can go into, different ways that you can link this man to the one living by the sword, and being the sword of the Most High when it comes to, or being his whooping stick when it comes to putting us dealing with us for going off, right? So let me let these. Oh, wait. Let's get some definitions. So we'll get. A sudden, violent, unlawful seizure of power from a government. So you'll need that. You'll need coup. Okay. And propaganda. So when you talk about propaganda, this is a part of his sword. The swiftness and the slickness of this devil's tongue is a part of his sword. His media is a part of his sword, and you'll see as I let these videos play, information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. What would be that cause? To gain influence of or over that nation, right? Because they have something that this devil wants. All right, bear with me a second. Let me find it. Okay. All right, here we go.
Spain. Well, actually more like Spain's colonies. Spain's glory days have come and gone. They are a declining empire, and there is major resistance in their colonies, especially in Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Meanwhile, the U.S. is a rising empire. And they
heavily Jake populated places. Obviously obviously Puerto Rico and the Philippines, but I'm sorry, Puerto Rico and Cuba, but the Philippines is less known, because it is I think around in the 1500s or 1600s there were a lot of so-called Mexicans that were sent to fight in the Philippines. So you got that, and that goes into us being spread to the four corners of the earth.
Already are pretty uncomfortable with Spain having colonies like 100 miles off their coast. But at the same time, they don't love the idea of true independence for places like Cuba or Puerto Rico. These are strategic islands right in the U.S.'s neighborhood. And, like Hawaii, American companies have money invested, particularly in Cuba. Independence might mean them getting kicked out. So the U.S. delves into this fight between Spain and their colonies. They use the explosion of an American Navy ship as their excuse, even though it was likely an accident, not an attack. But sometimes stories...
So what is that? Riches got by deceit? Right? What about that? Because you see, they used an explosion of a Navy ship, which was probably an accident, but they said they acted it, or they told people that it was an act of aggression, right? Because of unrighteous dealings. This is Sirach chapter 10, verse 8. And injuries and riches got by deceit. The kingdom is translated from one people to another. All right, so you're going to see that is why they have it now, Job 9 and 24, but Esau is the end of the world, or the end of an age, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth.
Matter more than truth. So the U.S. sends in troops to liberate the rebels fighting against their Spanish colony.
Right? So they sneak their way in there and quote unquote liberate the rebels, giving them money, making sure that they can overthrow the democratically elected government. Funny. Some things never change, right?
Promising them independence, not only in Cuba and Puerto Rico, but later over here in the Philippines and Guam. These local uprisings eventually drive out the Spanish. And in all of these cases, the U.S. reneges on their promise to give independence to these locals. And they figure out ways to govern Cuba and Puerto Rico indirectly themselves. The U.S. has just piggybacked off several independence movements to enact several coups at once, allowing them to install pro-American leaders and a Navy base in Cuba, and eventually annexing Puerto Rico and Guam, which they still control, and the Philippines, which they held for 48 years. Again, I made a whole video about this one too if you want to go deeper. Anyway, we gotta move a little quicker here because we're not gonna get through all these coups. Let's move on. Coup has to do with Spain. We're not gonna get through all these coups. Let's move on. Okay, so we're over here in Nicaragua. It's 1909. There's a bunch of powerful American companies here, but a new president comes to power vowing to regulate them. The U.S. is not going to let this happen. So the Secretary of State starts spreading rumors to smear this guy, this president, saying that he's building a canal that would compete with the Panama Canal. But really, they're just upset because Nicaragua is taking loans from Europe. The U.S. keeps painting this guy as a war criminal and someone worthy of being thrown out. So push comes to shove, and the U.S. sends ships to both of Nicaragua's coasts. They assemble a bunch of Marines in Panama, basically just flexing on Nicaragua and telling the president to step down. And the benefit of being a rising superpower is that it worked. He has no choice but to step down. And soon, a leader that the U.S. likes comes to power. The coup is complete, and really, this is the first of many instances of the U.S. meddling in Nicaragua. A few years later, the U.S. is back in the region for another coup in next-door Honduras.
How many in... So when you go, you are you saying this? So when it, I can't even think. Goodness gracious. What is it? 7? No. How about this? There we go. So remember I mentioned red. So that Revelation 6. And there went out another horse, and that was red, and power was given unto him, and he sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So he goes throughout all of these countries and has been taking peace from the earth. Look at Syria, look at Iraq, look at Iran. Let's see. Nope. Look at that. Overt and covert foreign intervention dates back to 1811. invaded Chile just a year. After this, South America. Also, 225 out of the 243 years. What is that, 93%? Make it easy. I don't remember how to do that. I don't remember how to change it. What is 245 out of 290? Oh, damn. Hold on. I'd have messed my 225 out of 243. Wait. 225. Good grief, I can't get it right. 225 of 243. I believe that's wrong. Whatever. We ain't even gonna. What is percent? We ain't even worried about it. All we know is that's way too long. Alright, that is way too long to be at war. Let's let this roll a little bit more. I don't want all of it to play because I think it's like another 8 minutes. But you get the point. I just wanted to point that out. That's it.
This one was plotted by a band of private American citizens, and it follows a similar pattern. A new president comes to town, in this case directly inspired by Nicaragua's president, and he wants to take back control of the country from American businesses. In this case, we're talking about bananas. The banana companies were not going to let this happen. And it was mostly this guy, a banana businessman named Sam the Banana Man. He's not going to let this pesky president run his country. No, so he assembles his own militia. He literally buys a surplus Navy ship, loads it up with weapons, and starts his campaign to get this president out. He sails from New Orleans to the coast of Honduras, and he literally invades the country with like a private army. Wait, where's the U.S. government in all this? They also didn't like the political direction of Honduras either, so they just sort of stood back. Let this private invasion happen, and then at the critical moment, the U.S. steps in to order a ceasefire, basically bullying the president to step down. He had no way forward, no defense, so he resigns. And the Banana Man's leader of choice takes the presidency, giving the banana businessman land and a unique status to import anything he needs tax-free. And, wait for it, he refunds him for all of the coup expenses using public Honduran money. This banana man literally overthrew the government and made Honduras pay for it. Wow. Okay, so let's move forward to the 50s, where the coup becomes a more useful tool in the American toolkit. There's this new U.S. agency dedicated to collecting and analyzing information from all over the world, meaning for spying. They call it the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and it completely revolutionizes the art of the coup. Oh, and at this point, the U.S. is now a full-blown global superpower, no longer just looking in their own neighborhood, but rather at the whole world map, investing huge resources into fighting their global rival and its communist ideology.
You see that? To take peace from the earth.
So this gets us to Iran, 1953, where Iran had just elected a new star politician, Mohammad Mossadegh. He rises to power believing that Iran must take back control of its most valuable natural resource, oil, which at the time was completely controlled by a British company called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. We know it today as BP. Mossadegh is done with this. Let's kick the British out and take back our oil. But like the US, Britain is not happy with Iranians trying to take back their resources. So they warn that if they do this, there will be consequences. So the British catch a quick meeting with the CIA's Middle East guy who was passing through London, and they pitch him on this idea. Let's throw out Mossadegh. The CIA is like, okay, and they kind of sniff communist vibes on Mossadegh with this big desire to nationalize Iran's oil. Or at least they tell themselves they do. So the CIA agrees, and they secretly send this guy to Iran. He's the Middle East bureau chief, Kermit Roosevelt. He's like in his 30s. Oh, and yes, he is the grandson of another big coup guy, Teddy Roosevelt, who I have gone into another video.
So if you don't know anything about Teddy Roosevelt, you need to look him up.
Roosevelt sneaks into Iran and is given $1 million taxpayer dollars to use, quote, in any way that would bring about the fall of Mossadegh. So now there's American CIA agents in Iran secretly trying to overthrow the government. And it's a rocky start at first with a bunch of failures. But they start using their money to get traction, bribing politicians, religious clerics, and other leaders to say divisive and controversial things about Mossadegh. They hire local
You see?
to stage attacks against religious leaders, making it look like they had been ordered to do so by Mossadegh.
Now, where can you equate staged attacks to? I won't say it. You can figure that out for yourself. But think about where you've seen or heard about staged attacks.
Really, they were just getting paid by the CIA to do this. And with enough time and money, they create an atmosphere of chaos and hostility and distrust among the public. Oh, and there's weapons. The CIA stashes enough weapons and explosives to support a, quote, 10,000-man guerrilla organization for 6 months, like just in case they need to, start a full-on conflict. The result of all of this is more violence and chaos that engulfs the capital. Shops are being destroyed, bullets are flying into mosques, people are beaten, and thousands of paid demonstrators flood the street.
Also wrecking that nation's economy as well. So, that's enough. You get the point. You understand now that the sword is deeper than the physical weapon. It is deeper than a missile, a gun. It is his slick tongue. So we'll end it. War was in his heart. His words were smoother than butter. Let's see if we can find it with just that. Nope. Man. Let's find it real quick. Psalms 55. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. And that is how they weasel their way into some of these nations, saying, yeah, we'll help you, we'll do this, we'll do that. And then they renege. Or they use propaganda. Either way, this devil has never gotten anything fair and square. He's never ran, or he's never run a fair fade, right? Never ran a fair fade. It is always by deceit. And for that, you're gonna pay. You will pay. And the Most High Yahweh is going to see to it through his men. So with that being said, I pray that you were edified. Shalom.